Good morning. I hope everyone had a good Easter holiday, and I'm going to go over papers 3 and 4. I had mentioned earlier that paper 4 was going to be a kind of a cumulative paper, and over the Easter break, I ran across a news article about Shakespeare that seemed to tie in with negotiating for the past, with the past. So I am giving you these papers uh, at the same time. I will post the prompts for the papers on D2L uh, by the end of class, by noon tomorrow or today, excuse me. And some of the reading that you're doing now and some of the lectures and discussions will, I hope, prepare you for the papers. The other reason I'm posting them right away is that they're only going to be a week to 10 days apart. Looking ahead, today we're going to talk about the paper and the 12th night. We're going to wrap up my part of the 12th night, or most of it, on the 9th. Next Monday, we're going to wrap up the 12th night. Rita and Michaela present, and we have a quiz also on the 12th night next Monday. Paper 3 is on the comedies. And again, we're going to take a look at a well-developed 3 to 4 page essay, fully respond to one of the prompts that's coming up here. It's due in the Google Drive folder, April 30th at 11:59 p.m. It's an analysis paper, not a research paper, so it should be the student's individual analysis. The quotations should be from the play, not or plays, excuse me, and they shouldn't come from any other sorts of research. This is your analysis. Option 1. The British novelist Fay Weldon offers this observation about happy endings. The writers, I do believe, who get the best and most lasting response from their readers are writers who offer a happy ending through moral development. By happy ending, I do not mean mere fortunate events, a marriage or a last-minute rescue from death, but some kind of spiritual reassessment or moral reconciliation, even with the self, even at death. The option goes on to explain how Twelfth Night and Measure for Measure illustrate the kind of ending Weldon describes. In a well-written essay, identify the spiritual reassessment or moral reconciliation evident in each work's ending and explain its significance to the work as a whole. Let's take a look and try to break this down just a little bit more. I think work backwards. Identify each work's theme or most important element. Try to identify a commonality between the two plays. Identify the spiritual reassessment or moral reconciliation. I think it's possible in the 12th night to argue that that doesn't happen, and therefore you could argue that perhaps Weldon is wrong about the 12th night, or doesn't apply to the 12th night. I think that that would be something you might want to do, or might look at. It doesn't have to. I think it also, there is plenty of spiritual reassessment or moral reconciliation as well, I believe. Then explain the connection, but I think work backwards, and by explain the connection, explain the connection of the spiritual reassessment to the work's important element, or the moral reconciliation to the work's important element. There's no reason to reference the Weldon quote. You're focusing on the happy ending, you're focusing on the spiritual reassessment, you're focusing on the moral reconciliation. You don't have to reference the quotation at all. All the quotation was an effort to give the premise for the paper. Option 2. We've talked about power in class a lot in this section. We talked about in Julius Caesar the fact that the masses supported Caesar, that the masses were seen as perhaps easy to play, easy to fool, Antony certainly seemed to get them emotionally hyped up, and they were seen as somewhat fickle. We talked about class a little bit in Othello, how Othello was never quite, because of his race and because of his station as a general, never quite able to penetrate the upper class. I think there were elements of class in Iago's hatred for people as well. We've mentioned class in the 12th Night here as well. The servants seeming to be more practical than the Duke, for example. We'll take a look at measure for measure, and we'll talk about class and the exercise of power there as well. Write an essay about a character in each play who works to free himself or herself from the power of others or seeks to gain power over others. Demonstrate how the author, in this case, how Shakespeare, uses the power struggle to enhance the meaning of the work as a whole. Once again, I think we're doing the same sort of thing. You work backwards. What's the work's theme or most important element? Identify a commonality between the two plays so that you can deal with the same theme, the same important element. Okay? Pick a character in each play who works to free himself or herself from the power of others or seeks to gain power over others, and then work to explain the connection. I apparently forgot to type that down there. Work to explain the connection. The subject matter of the 12th Night, I think we've talked about, is desire and love. There's melancholy in the idea of the Duke and of Olivia. There's obsession or madness or lovesick. There's disguise and deception. There's gender and sexual identity because we have Cesario and Viola. And then there's class, as we deal with the lower class and the upper class. And we deal with Malvolio trying to move above his station. We've already dealt with it in the fact that Cesario talks about his or her station in life and how it's kind of a fallen situation. Measure for Measure talks about morality. We have prostitution. We have people visiting prostitutes. We have people trying to preserve virginity. There's certainly discussions about liberty and justice that can always appear in, I think, both papers that work. Appearance versus reality, which, characters appear to be something other than they are, than what they actually are. And that ties in, I think, also with some of the stuff where we're talking about disguises, agency, who can take control of his or her life, and the role of women. How can all of that play together? So I think if we take a look at this play, there are some crossovers. The desire and love perhaps can tie on to the morality. And you can make a comment about tying those two together as you develop the idea of the theme. Disguise and deception and appearance and reality certainly tie together. Gender and sexual identity and the women's roles certainly tie together. Class and agency certainly tie together. Justice, rendering due, whether it's to genders, whether it's to class, whether it's are people being rendered their due when there's all sorts of deception going on. All of those sorts of things can be parts of the paper. Remember that if you're going to state the theme, it can't be just the subject matter. It's the point Shakespeare makes about the subject matter. All right. If you have questions and you're watching this, shoot me an email. Let's move on to paper 4. Once again, 3 to 4 page essay. Respond to the prompt completely. It's due in the Google Drive folder May 10th at 11 a.m. To the best of my knowledge, that's a Monday. Or to the best of my memory, that's a Monday. It's an analysis paper, not a research paper. All work should be the student's individual analysis. I talked earlier that I was going to do a cumulative paper, and we spent, I think, a lot of time where I've used the phrase, negotiate with the past. I've had all of your presentations talk about the most difficult part of negotiating with the past. And we discussed race, gender, and class. I will have posted by the time class is over on Wednesday the D2L, this article by Russell Contreras. I encountered this article over the weekend, and in the article, there is the following quotation. Scholars say there is more evidence that audiences during Shakespeare's time were more diverse than originally thought, and the playwright would have been exposed to travelers from around the world, including Africa and the Americas. This opens up for more nuanced examinations about race in his plays, Thompson said. Write an essay that discusses how 21st readers can make a nuanced examination about race or gender or class of Shakespeare in Shakespeare's plays. Use one of the tragedies, one of the comedies, and Henry IV to write the paper. For a quick reminder, nuance is subtle difference or distinction in expression, meaning, response. In other words, how can we deal with some of the fine gradations instead of screaming that Shakespeare is a classic and everybody should read it, and if you don't understand Shakespeare and don't read Shakespeare, you're a barbarian, or Shakespeare is the worst dead white male ever to write, and he is a racist, sexist, and classist person, and reading him will destroy the 21st century. What are the nuances? What are the things that we can look at to find shades of gray instead of black or white in reading Shakespeare? How does Shakespeare deal with race, gender, and class in the plays the paper is going to cover? In what ways do those plays show Shakespeare to be a person who reflects his time? And in what ways do those plays show Shakespeare has 21st century sensibilities? And how can a 21st century audience negotiate with the past to make a nuanced analysis of those differences? I think that those are all items to consider. Please, 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 I'm begging you, don't do this as a question and answer thing. This, I think, is a pre-writing list, but I'm not sure it should be an outline for the whole paper. Once again, if you have questions and you can't get to class, shoot me an email. Remember that we have the one question, one comment at the start of every class period. So if you're not in class today, we'll just kind of go from there. And I hope to see everybody in class on Friday.